Yeah, man. So let's talk about it, man. Renting, owning, like the differences, what people think. Doz, what do you think? Do you feel like here in the UK? Do you feel like it's important to own your property?
I feel like there's a lot of pressures on property. Firstly, I definitely feel like if you're of a certain age, you will be looked at like, oh, when you buying a house, blah 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 blah. In terms of if it's important to own your property, that one there, I'm even still thinking sometimes myself like, are you owning the property to make money off it? Because some people say you can rent where you live.
Yeah.
And then obviously some people say that you can rent where you live or you can invest in other properties, basically other people stay in those.
Yeah.
And then some people say, yeah, you must own where you live. So do I feel like it's important to own a property? I guess sometimes it's dependent on whatever your strategy is. Really.
Yeah.
If it's important to own a property that you're gonna invest in for an investment strategy, or if it's important to own a property that you're gonna live in. So I guess I have to look at it from those two angles.
Yeah.
Really.
What are you saying from that? Are you trying to own a property or what? Your husband will have a property, you just move in nice. You don't need to worry about all that.
Do you know what it is? I feel like with me and my generation, there's so much pressure to own a property.
Yeah.
I don't think people actually understand what goes into it. Like, it's not just saving for a deposit. Like, there's so much more. So ideally, I would want to own a property, but honestly, it's just because everyone says that you should.
Okay. I get it. I get what people are saying because I know people that do both. Like, Daniel Moses, one of my good friends, they had a house. They turned it into a buy-to-let, went and rented out that property. By doing that, they took money out of that property to use to invest in other properties. Now he's got a property portfolio close to 10 million. Do you know what I mean? So I understand, and he still rents. Do you know what I mean? I know people who are millionaires that have loads of it, and they still rent. There are people that, like, I was in my friend has a house in Battersea, a flat in Battersea, and the building is a new build building, lovely building. Absolutely beautiful building. The top two floors are just one. This is one apartment for the whole size of the building. Do you know what I mean? Massive 2 suites. Some are renting, some are owning. Do you know what I mean? So I totally get it. Sometimes you want to rent for the flexibility, and a lot of the time, let's be honest, you can rent in places that you can't afford to buy in. And obviously, what we've seen with interest rates go up, there's this big issue in regards to people buying, and now they're struggling because their mortgage payments have gone up. So people who are renting are seeing rents go up. We're seeing, rooms that used to be £500 now going at £1,000 plus for a room. Like, you're literally sharing with other people, and you're paying what people used to pay to have their own space. So if interest rates go up, yes, that affects, owners, but the landlords, if their interest rates go up and their costs go up, they're going to pass that cost onto the tenants.
What do you think about that, though, in terms of landlords having to increase rents based upon the interest rate?
That's how economics work. Otherwise, if they don't do that, landlords will be paying for renters to live in their house. So basically, be paying you to live in their house because they'll be paying the difference. If the mortgage is £2,000 that they're paying a month and you're paying 1,500, they're going to pay the other 500. So they're paying £500 so that you can stay in their house.
What are the options that's happening right now? Like, there's grace periods.
So the main option is that you can take a mortgage break, mortgage payment holiday. So you get a holiday from your mortgage. But remember, the interest is still added to the loan that you should do. The payments that you should have been paying still added to the loan. You're still going to pay that back over time anyway. But that's a way for you to get a bit of a break if you feel like the increase is too much for you to have some time to sort yourself out, or whatever that may be. But obviously, you can extend the term. So if you've got 15 years left on your mortgage, if possible, you can remortgage and then extend the term so that you can get a longer term.
You see, on that extending the term now, yeah? What if you're of a certain age, yeah? Because obviously, mortgages go to 66 retirement age or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let's say you're like, I don't know, you're in your 40s, mid-40s or something like that. Now. Is there a limit on extending your term now?
Yeah, definitely. It's not one age. Different lenders have different criteria on how much they go to. It also depends on how much income you have in retirement outside of employment and so forth. So if you've got good pensions, if you've got income from other places and so forth, then that can affect how long they can extend it by and so forth. Also, if it's a buy-to-let property, you might be able to rent it longer because obviously you're renting it out to people. It's not based on you paying it, it's based on the rental income. So if you're renting it, you might be able to extend that longer. So for some people, that's what they need to do, switch to a buy to let. Also, there are other options in regards to, like I just said, you could switch to a buy to let. If you're in a house now and you're struggling, a residential home that you own, and you're struggling with your mortgage, what you could do is move further out, rent, and then rent out your space.
I know there's something like you have to have a certain amount of equity before you can move out, right? And then rent out somewhere else.
Yes. So typically, with a buy to let, you need to have 15% equity in the property to get a buy to let. Sorry, not 15%. It's 25% deposit. 25% deposit. So you have to have 25%. The difference between the loan, how much you owe, and how much the property is valued, there needs to be at least 25% difference in there for you to get a mortgage. So these are the things that you need to think about, because that can be a lot, especially when you come down to London and so forth. So it's really important to look at these things. But also, if you're on a residential, you have the option that you can get consent to let, which is basically consent to rent out your property until the mortgage term finishes. So that might allow you to then rent that out now as even though it's on a residential mortgage, and then you can switch to a buy-to-let mortgage once the term is finished. So you have options. You have options. There's the rent a room scheme where you can rent out a room and you don't pay, as long as you keep it at a certain amount, you don't have to pay any tax on it.
Another thing as well is turning your house into almost like a podcast space. Like what some people do, is instead of renting out a studio, go to a nice apartment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they'll pay, I don't know, a decent amount of money
a
day, and then that will help your payments.
What I'm seeing with people is that, they're turning their garage that they used to park their car, they're parking their car on the road, and then they're turning that garage into a studio. Yeah. So if you can get a bathroom, you can get, a bedroom, kitchen, all of those facilities in that space, someone can pay you a rent to live in your former car garage. So now that your garage is making you money, if you could do an extension, so you might have equity in your property. So again, this is what I say about when you own, you have these options. When you're renting, you don't have any of these options because it's not yours. Do you know what I mean? But when you own, you can also have the option to do an extension. So what a lot of people are doing is saying, well, actually, I want to buy somewhere, but it's expensive. There's a lot of taxes and so forth. You can extend. You could take equity out of your property and extend it. And in that extension, you could get private access to that extension, and then you could rent that space out. Do you know what I mean? These are the types of things that you could be doing. You got to look at ways to increase your income, make your house start to work for you, because obviously you've got this mortgage on it. But again, I know a lot of people say that's why I wouldn't do a mortgage time bomb, and all of this type of stuff people are saying, but actually, people that are renting are struggling as well.
That's a fact.
If not more.
That's a fact. Well, I know some people, what they try and do is they do overpayments on their mortgage to try and offset the interest rate, right?
Yeah.
I can only imagine right now, I don't know, how feasible is that, like, in a time like this where...
It all depends on the amount of money that you've got. But again, if your mortgage payment, if there is money left over, you might do overpayments because that goes to the capital, that reduces it. So potentially, if you do that over time, that can then be the difference on the rate that you get, because that could mean that, you go from having 25% equity to 40% equity. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? If you make overpayments over 3-4 years, plus the value of the property goes up, the two together could mean, there's a bigger gap between the equity. There's a big gap between the debt and the value of the property. That equity has grown. So because the equity has grown, that's a lower risk to the bank. Because it's lower risk to the bank, they're going to give you a better rate. These things are all plausible. It all depends on your situation, like you said. I don't think there's anything wrong. I think in renting, I think a lot of people buy out of vanity.
That's true.
And that's why we're in a lot of issues right now. Man, I bought because you wanted to get your 1,000 likes with the keys. Do you know what I mean? Man are buying that you're overstretching yourself, and you were overstretching yourself at 1.25%. Now that it's at 4 or 5%, you're finished. Do you know what I mean? And now when they come to take your house, are you going to take a picture with the repossession?
Exactly.
You're not going to take the picture with the people repossessing your thing.